this video, we're going to talk about vetting and verifying offers. So we're specifically talking about remote sales roles. No matter what job you have in the world, you should be vetting, verifying, asking questions to understand fully what you're getting into before you take that job. But we're going to be talking about it again from the lens of remote high ticket sales. That's what this channel is all about. So we're going to go over why you need to ask these questions. What are the questions that you need to be asking and when you should be asking them throughout the interview process, and jumping right into what are vetting questions and why you need to ask them. Pretty much they're just questions, like I said before, so that you can understand fully what you're walking into before you accept the job position. And you need to know, especially when it comes to things like OTE and what goes into creating that OTE, because you might run into a couple issues where, one, the OTE is a number that the business owner is giving you based off of what makes sense mathematically. So they might say, okay, especially if they are a smaller company where you might have the business owner doing all the sales or the business owner and one other closer doing all the sales, and they're looking to scale and ramp it up and fill calendars even more than they're doing currently, they might say, okay, I'm half the time taking sales calls, half the time doing marketing and all these other duties as a business owner. And because I'm doing it half the time, I am closing XYZ amount of deals, certain close rate, certain revenue I'm generating by myself. If I bring in a closer and double the ad spend and double the calls on the calendar, they, if they're doing the same close rate and everything like that, therefore they should be producing double the revenue. Therefore, whatever 10% of that revenue is what they should be making. Therefore, that's the OTE. And the math just isn't always perfect like that. So when you're asking these questions, this is going to let you know if that is the case, or the case could be everything's accurate. The OTE is exactly what it's being presented to be when you walk in, as long as you're producing similar or, above the sales team that's currently there, you will earn that amount of money, which is great, which is what we want to see. And then there's a scenario where that is accurate. The OTE is accurate, but the work that goes into producing that revenue is such a high workload that maybe, and when I say such a high, I mean, it's just maybe a workload that you are not willing to do, because it's one thing to say, hey, this is what the sales team's earning. It's another thing to say, this is what the sales team is doing in order to earn that amount of commission. I've seen sales teams where I've coached guys that are doing 25, 35K every single month, but they're taking 11, 12, 13 sales calls, working like 12, 13-hour days in order to actually produce that amount of commission, right? And that's very different from the guy that's doing 20, 30K a month, that's doing it based off of 6 sales calls a day, maybe has a higher, ticket item, or has a higher close rate based off of either skill or nurturing and marketing from the company. So again, it's not just about OTE. It's about, am I okay with facilitating or continuing the workload that it takes to produce that OTE? So again, these vetting and verifying questions will help with that. What you should be asking is questions that allow you to personally reverse engineer the numbers and get a really good picture on what is actually being produced and how much work goes into it. So questions like, what is the close rate? What is the show rate? How much upfront cash collected is being captured? The reason why this is an important question, because if I have a 10K deal size that I'm dealing with the company, a lot of times what businesses will do and what people will do, especially sales reps, is they'll look at that and they'll say, okay, 10K offer with a, 30% close rate or a 50% close rate. Every 2 calls I close one, 10K, I have a 10% commission. I make $1,000. That's great. And then they do the math solely on that. But most of these offers, they will pay based on cash collected, and some deals, hopefully most deals are paid in full, which they'll call PIFs. Most deals hopefully are paid in full. Therefore, you do get that full $1,000 commission up front. But sometimes you're going to have a couple deals pay in full, a couple deals split pay, and you might get paid differently depending on the split. So, if you collect half the revenue up front, so you close 10K in revenue, but it's $5,000 you collect up front from that deal, and the deal you made with the person, the prospect, is that they would pay $5,000 this month and $5,000 next month. That means your commission will be $500 month 1 and then another 500 month too. You'll still get paid the $1,000 depending that they finish their term, but it's not necessarily going to translate into what you earn that specific month. It's going to be spread out. And usually what happens is you can reach that OTE, but the first month there's some PIFs and there's some payment plan deals. And this doesn't even account for if they're 2 pays, if they're 3 pays, they're 4 pays, which means sometimes it might take 4 months, 3 months to get that full $1,000 commission. So what you'll see is some offers where you come in, you close a chunk up front, and then maybe the OTE is 10K a month, but your first month you make 5K, 6K, second month you make 7, 8K because maybe you're closing the same up front, but now you're getting more commission because what's supplementing your income is some of those deals were split pays and some of those pays are coming in on the second month. So then maybe the second month you make 8K, maybe the third month you make 10K, and then now you're at that 10, 12, and you're floating around that 10K a month range. But there is a ramp up period to where if you expected to come in and do 10K your first month, yeah, maybe you could, but if you're basing everything off of just the fact that every deal is going to be a painful and I'm going to get paid the full commission for every single deal, that's just not the reality in most of these offers. So one of those questions need to be, hey, yes, I know this is the deal size, but what is the average upfront cash collected so that you can kind of base out, it's going to be my 30-day revenue. This is what I can produce on average. Again, we're always looking to outperform, right? There's no cap on this. But if we're trying to understand what's likely, we want to say, okay, this is what's likely for me as long as I produce as same, if not above the current sales team. This is what's likely for me to be bringing in the first 30 days. And this is kind of like that ramp up period because most deals are 2 pays or 3 pays or 4 pays or 6 pays. It really just depends, right? Call volume is another one as well. Like how many calls are going to be taken. And you can say based on the deal size, based on the close rate, based on the show rate, based on the average upfront cash collected, and based on how many calls I can expect to be booked on the calendar. And obviously your own output in terms of self-setting your own calls, if that's something they allow you to do, you can take those numbers, do the math yourself and say, okay, the average close rate of the team is this, the upfront cash collected is this is how many calls you take. Okay, so actually the OTE is going to be X. And what you want to know is how close was that OTE they told you to what the math tells you it is. And, hopefully they're very honest and straightforward and it's very close up. And it's also very telling if you're asking these numbers based questions and they can't answer them, you also know that you're probably not dealing with a company that has a very systematized process that is on top of their numbers, that has good tracking systems in place. And, maybe if they're talking to a sales manager, he should be looking at the numbers on a daily basis, working with the team that he should be able to spit off most of these numbers just off the top of his head. So it's a really good indicator of where the company's at with their systems and processes. If a lot of these are kind of like vague or I don't knows when you're asking these numbers based questions, because they should know, right? And another good question is the admin responsibilities. It's something you want to get clear. So there's a lot of hidden work that some sales reps find out later after they've joined a team. Some companies, they have end of day reports that you've got to fill out. That takes 5-10 minutes at the end of every day where you've got to do a report on every single call you took for that day, who showed, who didn't show. Some of them, obviously you're going to be tracking your metrics, but how you go about tracking your metrics can vary team to team. Some teams have really good automated processes where you're putting in minimal data because a lot of it's captured automatically. Some teams, they just use like Google Sheets and it's very manually input, right? Some teams, they want full breakdowns of every single call written out by you, like what happened on that call, why they closed, why they didn't close, that kind of thing. Some of them, they use automated summaries from a system like Fathom where it records the call, does a summary and spits it out to the sales manager so you don't have to do that extra work. Some teams, they want you manually putting things into the CRM, whereas other teams might have some kind of automated process where the CRM fills out a lot of this stuff on its own. Like I said, they have that Fathom and that goes into the CRM and everything is all kind of connected systematically. Some teams, they require the closer to pre-call their leads and check in and confirm that they're going to be showing up, which I think you should do anyways. But some teams, they require it. Some teams won't require it. So like there's all of these little administrative admin tasks that you want to keep, you want to know before you get in, because it's not just, okay, you're going to book calls. I show up to the calls. I close them. I don't close them. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. It's over. We move on. That's the end of the job. there's a lot of variation between teams, and you want to be very, very clear on what these are, what these tasks are, what these little things are before you accept the offer, or at least early on in the onboarding process, so that you can have a clear understanding and you're not being blindsided by these things, and you're able to schedule out your day and your processes accordingly, right? As for the last thing, when to ask these questions, if the business does like these group interviews or even these first round interviews, you don't want to ask and get all into these weeds right away. You can, but it's usually better, especially if it's a company you really want to work with, get their interest first. Get them to like you, want you on the team first before you start getting into all these technicalities, because there's better questions to ask. Like I put in my previous video, there's better questions to ask that are going to get them interested in you rather than these questions that are super technical and really getting into it. A lot of business owners or sales managers might find it's not necessary to get into all the weeds before they even know if they want to hire you, right? So depending on the interview process, you go through that first round, maybe you go through that second round, maybe on that third round, one-on-one, where it's usually just them offering you the position or clearing up some final things. That's when you can start asking these questions. Maybe if they do like a 2-round process, you can ask the questions. If they do like a group interview, then a one-on-one. On that one-on-one, you can ask some of these questions. I would never ask it in a group interview setting. Also, you could also just wait till after you get the offer. Usually this works best if they give you the offer on the call. They say, hey, we want you. We want to offer you the position. Do you have any questions, anything else to clear up before we kind of, get you onboarded? That's when you can start to go through any gaps that haven't been filled yet in your questioning with these things. I think that's usually the best way to go about it. But there are some companies that will kind of, give you the offer via email and then to ask to like get on another call to confirm some stuff. Maybe you can, if they do like a proper onboarding call, that would be the best time to do it right then and there as well. I usually like to get the offer first, secure it, then we can kind of button up anything that hasn't been covered or cleared up. But that is how you vet and verify offers for the most part. There are obviously other things you could do, external work in terms of looking at their testimonials, case studies, looking at their branding, all of those things, which we can get into another video if you guys like this kind of stuff. But for the most part on the interviews, these are some good questions, a good start to really get clear on the scope of work, get clear on the truth of the on-track earnings. So hopefully that helps. See you guys in the next video.